So, before I walk to the gym this morning, I'd like to examine what I've done since I previously documented my iterations upon my project based on some feedback. I think that whatever I do here, or rather whatever I reflect upon here, because I don't think I'm going to concretely change anything, whatever I do here will probably be sort of final, at least until I get any other feedback, if there's anything else I might want to change or improve upon. But there are a few questions that I'm certainly asking. Some of them are a little bit extraneous, but I think the most concerning question is about efficiency. Because the engineering here, I wouldn't say has gotten terribly convoluted, but it is a little bit cumbersome, perhaps, rather than convoluted. I would compare it to like a very long derivative problem in calculus that's very easy to apply the formulas to solve, but becomes very cumbersome and long. So it is a little bit cumbersome, and so one might ask why something so cumbersome is better than its alternatives, which I did question when I was working on this a few hours ago. And I took a nap, and I've gotten up to do some other work and work on this before I walk to the gym and then a class. And well, also I think I'm going to actually get started on developing some software I might implement. Yes, so one may ask themselves, how is this efficient? Cost efficient, time efficient? Because I am aware that mining companies or biomedical companies or maritime companies or aerospace companies or whatever this ultimately ends up being suitable for translation into, they're going to pretty much want what can be manufactured more quickly than what is more accessible. So in terms of that, I would say that there is kind of a gap that must be bridged in Alaska, because when I have visited the mines here, they've been saying that, or at least at Pogo Mine, they were saying they have a pre-approved list of vendors for instance, parts that they might want to order. It's not terribly difficult to get new vendors on the list. And yet, problem that they run into is that the vendors are outside of Alaska, right? Or actually, like, even if they're in Alaska, they're just so remote and just so in the middle of nowhere. It's hard to get things to arrive in a time-efficient manner. Or like if they need a service technician to arrive at the mine, service technicians might not even want to come. So I think maybe here is where I might particularly have an advantage with this project. This is an example of something I don't think that's strong enough in terms of efficiency, but it's definitely one point, one perspective from which I could argue I have an advantage. So what else? Well, obviously I've addressed that there are things I'm trying to accomplish here that are otherwise impossible. That's why I'm pitching it to the National Science Foundation or NASA or whoever. whoever ends up being the most suitable. So, I mean, yes, it's true that they're going to want what is most time efficient, but if they want something that is a completely unmet need that is typically impossible with commercial manufacturing, then certainly they would turn to me for that need, right? As long as this science could be validated. I might try to validate it and find out that my ideas are not really possible to implement, or maybe they're actually too expensive or something. But I think the science can be validated.
He never sleeps. He says that he will never die. He dances in light and in shadow, and he is a great favorite. He never sleeps, the judge.
I think that something like this is fairly young, but I do think it can be validated. I do think it has a place, but I think I need to flesh out efficiency a little more. So, and something else I was asking myself about is, even though I chose to major in mining engineering, I've also had, or one of the other engineering disciplines that I was quite interested in is the subset of chemical engineering that is dedicated to pulp and paper manufacturing, actually. And that might seem quite random and odd, but even though I pivoted away from thinking about that and decided to become a mining engineer, at least undergrad, I'm kind of drawing a connection here between something that has applicability in terms of innovating manufacturing methods in mining and what I was previously interested in with like paper science. I mean, I suppose just in general, because I was talking before about materials classification and answering the issue of the variability of waste composition with AI. I was talking before about that. I do think it, basically this solution, novel manufacturing methods that also address waste valorization, like this specifically, I do think it can be translated into pretty much anything, but since I particularly had an interest in that chemical engineering subset before, I'm kind of drawing a connection here, kind of seeing an overlap, because of my interest in developing biocomposites. So there are cool questions I could probably ask about that. I also want to ask questions about water splitting for the separation of metal ions, and if that's possibly something that could be implemented here in order to make my processes, my mechanochemical architecture more efficient, less cumbersome. Perhaps it's something, I don't know, I must think about the year one budget and efficiency. Maybe, I can't really read this right now. Maybe down the line, I already have fairly fleshed out plans for, well, I'm not really going to discuss what they are down the line yet, but I already have things I want to get into proposing later, essentially. I don't know if I can truly say that they're very fleshed out or very well thought out at this point. Certainly, question I'm going to ask is what path I'm going to go down as I eventually expand this into a well, not necessarily into a PhD project, that like this directly would not be a PhD project, or what becomes of it, but because this is going to be something that I believe I want to take advantage of commercially. I've already spoken to mining companies about it. But what I mean is, I would like to do research at the PhD level that obviously underpins my knowledge base and expand the faculties that the business has from there. Sort of what I'm getting at, if that makes sense. So that's why I ask questions about something like water splitting. I think could be feasible to implement. It's something like water splitting for metal ions could possibly have some relevance in year one if I learn a little more about it. But something like, for example, quantum AI integration, that would be something that I explore very far down the line, probably after I've completed PhD in PhD in quantum, or simply my PhD in mining or petroleum or metallurgy or something. It just needs to be a PhD in engineering. But yeah, so I suppose in closing, at least assuming I don't get any other particular critique at this time, I'm asking questions about development down the line, high-level R&D that I can't necessarily plan for in year one, but I would like to plan for later in order to enrich the user experience even more. Asking questions about efficiency that I'm not sure I've answered quite well enough. Although for the most part, I do think this is pretty solid. I think I have a good grasp on what the mechanical engineering would look like, what the material science would look like. And I have many relevant connections who I can speak to if I need to clarify anything else as far as the science that I need to validate during year one. And this morning, I don't know how much time I'll actually have when I get back from the gym. I think I'll be I'll create some basic code for this, or I'll perhaps conduct some research into what I might actually need to do, because I've never actually built or implemented my own AI agent. And then from there, I suppose this is really informally the beginning of the true research and development.